Hello and welcome to this very special broadcast on Oneindia. The world woke up to the news of Israel launching attacks on Iran. This is something that is not unprecedented, but time and again we have seen how Israel has been mounting attacks on Iran, on its different military and security installations. And in the same breath, this morning, some nuclear installations have come under attack. Operation Rising Lion is what Israel has called it. Ehsan Safarnejad, Iranian geopolitical analyst, joins us from Iran. Ehsan, thank you so much for speaking to Oneindia.
Thank you for inviting me to your show.
Ehsan, the first things first, how is Tehran looking at this overture from the Israeli side? And Operation Rising Lion, how do you assess the impact on Iran's nuclear timeline with this?
Well, it is very hard to talk about that since, I think that from now on, they're going to be more secretive about the nuclear program, and rightfully so. Uh,
Mhm,
Talking about the attack itself, because you talked about the assessment of
mhm,
possible damage to either the Iranian nuclear facilities or the Iranian nuclear civilian infrastructure.
mhm,
Well, the attack that was carried out today, 13th of June, Israel launched a rather sizable attack, I would say, on Iran. The damage done to the nuclear facility has been thankfully very, very small. The nuclear facility in Natanz was targeted. The
mhm,
air defense systems intercepted most of the projectiles that were launched at the site. So thankfully, the damage was very, very minimal, and there has been no nuclear contamination as we speak. So that's the
mhm.
first good news. But
Right.
unfortunately, Israel also carried out attack at the capital of Iran, which is a substantial escalation. They
Mhm,
attacked the city of Tehran. They targeted multiple suburban areas like Shahid Chamran, Shahid Mahallati. These are residential places. Uh, Seventh square of Narmak. Again, Narmak is a suburban area. These three places that were attacked by Israel, all of them have civilian population in them. I've uh, listened to the journalists, to my colleagues, talking about the damage that was done and the victims of the Israeli attack. Unfortunately, uh, one of them was just saying that, the majority, not the majority, he said that actually every body that he saw
mhm,
was a body belonging to a woman or a children. That's all he saw. Another journalist was saying that they saw entire two upper level of a house of an apartment building actually being destroyed, and he really wanted to know if there was any Iranian military commander or the Iranian politician or a scientist was residing in those buildings. I think this comes from the journalist that went to the Narmak
mhm.
area. And he was saying that all the residents, all the people in the neighborhood were denying that there was anybody special or in any place of power residing in those neighborhoods. So the attack has been mostly on the Iranian civilians. The number of the casualties and deaths have yet to be determined. Uh, they are trying to do their best to, treat some people that have been wounded and, count the number of total people who have fell victim to the Israeli strike.
Okay. So in this scenario, Ehsan, there are two things that are happening. I totally understand what you're saying that targeting the capital city and also the residential areas is something that is violative of any war protocol. There are two things coming to our knowledge. One is the reported killing of a General Hossein Salami. What happens after that? Is that correct or not? If you can verify that for us. And secondly, do you think it's a very precarious situation for Iran as of now? Because the retaliatory strategies that Iran is using through drones, uh, call it legitimate self-defense, or could it be a dangerous escalation also?
Well, with regards to your first question,
Mhm,
whether General Salami was assassinated and martyred during the Israeli strikes in Iran, I
mhm,
can verify that that news is true. There have been four major figures being assassinated, being martyred during these strikes. The head of the IRGC, General Salami, the chief of the Joint Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces. This is the highest military commander in Iran. Shahid Bagheri was also martyred. The two nuclear scientists as well. One of them was the former director of the Iranian nuclear program. So yes, these strikes have actually resulted in casualties and death of high-ranking either military generals or the Iranian nuclear scientists.
mhm,
So that's the response to the first question. But with regards to the second question that you asked, whether this is going to be to actually bring about uh, more tension into the region.
mhm,
Actually, the exact opposite is true. Unfortunately, following the attack by Israel last year, the Iranian political class, there was a chasm between the Iranian military, the Iranian armed forces in general, and the Iranian government, the executive branch, about how they should go about responding. There's a Supreme National Security Council uh, that is held during occasions like this, and the members of that council are the top Iranian generals and the Iranian politicians from different branches of the government, executive branch, judiciary branch, and the parliamentary branch. There was a chasm between the politicians and the military generals. At
mhm,
the end of the day, the politicians won the voting in that council, and Iran decided not to retaliate, despite the fact that even during that operation,
mhm,
Israel carried out attack on the Iranian capital. So this has a precedent. They actually attacked the Iranian capital once, and they got away with it.
mhm,
Four Iranian military officers were martyred at that time.
mhm,
These were operators that were controlling the air defense systems in Iran, or like were present at the places that the attacks were taking place. And one Iranian civilian were murdered. Iran, uh, through a completely political decision, because from
mhm.
the military standpoint, this doesn't actually make a lot of sense, but they decided not to respond. And then we
Okay.
had this round of negotiations and talks between Iran and United States. But still, this diplomacy, international law, following Iranian case in the international courts and on United Nations, different institutions within the United Nations, those didn't result in any deterrence for Iran. And actually, this attack was larger than the previous one. Unfortunately, Israeli officials have declared that they are going to continue attacking Iran for 2 weeks. So clearly, uh, diplomacy has failed here, unfortunately, because you need both parties to engage in talk and dialogue in order for it to succeed.
Mhm.
In this episode of development between Iran and Israel, unfortunately, the other side is not at all interested in diplomacy or in international law. They violated Article 4, paragraph, apologies, they violated Clause 4 of Article 2 of the United Nations Charter, and
Mhm.
Iran is now determined to respond within the rights that it has that is defined in Article 51 of the United Nations Charter.
Right. Um, well, you mentioned about the talks between Iran and United States. Oman is hosting it. What impact do you think it will have on those talks? And secondly, do you still believe that United States can rein in Israel or convince it otherwise to stop this?
Well, it's funny that you ask that. I'm going to start by the last question that you asked.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, United States uh, refueling airplanes were used during this operation. A refueling
Okay.
uh, airplane was
It's
used in order
helping
to
Israel.
bring
Mm.
fuel. Yes, Israel help Israel, carry out the strikes. Particularly it flew from Al Ubaid base in, if I remember correctly, it was in Qatar.
Mhm.
So obviously, United States is pretty much involved in this. No matter how much they deny it, the evidence shows otherwise. So that's with regards to United States and its ability in controlling United States. Is the classic example of good cop, bad cop. United States can't really deny the facts of the battlefield, that they are very much complicit, and as such, if you're
Mm.
complicit in something, you have no reason in order to prevent it. But you also asked about, the talks and the future of them. Well, uh, there has been a series of escalatory measures taken by either United States, European Troika, or Israel. Israel carried out a strike against Iran. The European Troika decided to pass an anti-Iranian resolution in IAEA Board of Governance, a resolution that was passed with a very few number of positive votes. The majority, 11 countries, abstained on that. Three countries voted no, and then five countries. This is a very particular kind of voting. It seems that the majority of countries were actually threatened in order to go along with the uh, objective and the
Mhm.
political goal that the European Troika was pursuing. But they
Mhm.
passed that resolution against Iran, despite the fact that the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization has collaborated and cooperated with IAEA to the fullest extent. If your audience right now go to the Twitter account of Mr. Javad Zarif, former foreign minister of Iran, he has a tweet and he has tagged the IAEA Director General, Mr. Rafael Grossi, in it. He says that 90% of total inspections of the IAEA were carried out in Iran. How is it that IAEA, despite this completely enormous level of cooperation and the unbelievable access that has been granted to them, it still says that there is concern about the Iranian nuclear program, despite not having any concrete, or we're not even talking about concrete evidence. They don't even have circumstantial evidences. But the
Mhm.
documents, the top secret Israeli documents that were obtained in a covert operation by the Iranian intelligence, shows that the IAEA director is actually colluding with Israelis. So this doesn't surprise the Iranians. But what it goes to show you is the fact that, no matter what kind of concessions you make, no matter how much you collaborated with them, one country has 90% of IAEA's inspection, 195 other countries that are member states of United Nations receive only 10% of that. Uh, Iran accepted very, very uh, hostile, I would say,
Mhm.
hostile form of surveillance of its nuclear program. There, people always talk about the cameras that were installed in the Iranian nuclear facilities, but they don't explain what they are. They're actually something called online enrichment monitor, OLEM for short. This is a device that is placed between the tubes that connect one centrifuge to another, because you need a series of centrifuges in order to enrich uranium. You can't just
Mhm.
do it with one. And these devices actually, as the name suggests, online in real time, they gather samples from these tubes, uranium hexafluoride, and then they analyze it and determine what percentage of enrichment Iran is doing. The IAEA inspectors are actually notified before the heads of the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization. Still, despite everything that Iran has done, it seems that it wasn't enough for the political goal that the European countries were pursuing.
Right.
So I apologize to wrap this up.
Mhm.
What we can say that no amount of concession is enough for the adversaries of Iran. So the future of talks,
Mhm.
considering the complicity of United States and the European countries with Israel, seems to be gloom, to say the least.
All right, Ehsan. So, uh, if we put the timelines together, then 2015, I distinctly remember when it was Barack Obama's government in the United States. He started with this Iran nuclear talks after much deliberations for years. And when Donald Trump came in, he revoked those peace treaties and those nuclear treaties, or at least threatened to do so. Now, US and Iran are talking in Oman. There is a belligerent Israel also, which enjoys the tacit support of United States, which apparently is doing the double talk, good cop, bad cop, as you mentioned. In all these scenarios, Ehsan, you are in Iran. What probable steps do you foresee in immediate future in retaliation to these attacks, first of all, and also to give a befitting reply, not just to the West, not just to the European Troika, but also to America's friend Israel?
Well, that's a very good question. So we have to divide this response in two different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
The response to Israel should come in two formats: a political framework and a military response. Well, obviously, as Israel has targeted Iran, it should receive, a proportionate response based on the international law on the facilities that were involved in carrying out the attacks against Iran. That's the main objective of Iran. And based on the proclamations from the Iranian classical army, we call it
Mm-hmm.
Artesh in Farsi, Iran's
Oh.
IRGC, which is sort of like the unconventional arms of the Iranian armed forces. The Iranian
Mm-hmm.
armed forces in general, the Iranian government, the Iranian foreign ministry, Iran is keen on carrying out that retaliation and exercise its right under the international law. So that's one form of the response that Iran should carry out, and it should come to the extent that it completely make the Israelis rethink the statements that they have made that they are going to carry out a long bombing campaign against Iranian facilities and the Iranians themselves. So that's the first part. But with regards to the political side,
Mm-hmm.
and I could have gone into more details about the military, but I actually think that this time around, the political response of Iran is much important. Why do I say this? Look, we have been doing this sort of metaphorical dance with the United States and the European countries for a long time. In 1984, AP reported that Iran is 2 years away from making a nuclear bomb. 2 or 3 years, I don't remember the exact timeline, but somewhere
Mm-hmm.
along that number. They claim that 41 years have gone by since that initial claim. And throughout the years, how many times do you have heard the Western mainstream media talking about Iran being few weeks, few months, few years away from nuclear weapon, despite everything that Iran has done? In 2003, Iran uh, signed Tehran Declaration with the foreign ministers of the European Troika, in which Iran actually stopped its enrichment process fully, fully, And the
Oh.
IAEA's inspectors were granted access to every enrichment facility to Iran. They invested in everything. The plan was that in 6 months, the IAEA's inspector would come to the conclusion that Iranian nuclear program is a civilian one. But
Mhm.
6 months turned into a year. Iran constantly was asking where did it went? The talk of uh, back then they were calling it trade relief, lifting the trade ban. But
Mhm.
Iran was asking question, what about you? What about your obligation within the framework? Then Iran went on and signed in 2004, the next year, the Paris
Mhm.
Agreement, in which Iran not only halted the activities in its enrichment facilities, but also in the facilities that it was carrying out uranium conversion. Uranium conversion is a precursor to the uranium enrichment. So Iran even
Mhm.
accepted that. Again, this two episodes, 6 months turned into 2 years. The Europeans finally said that, oh, we can't really do that because United States wouldn't allow us. In 2009, United States president proposed a nuclear swap agreement between Iran, Turkey, Brazil. And unfortunately, you know, right after the fact that Iran actually conceded to the demands of United States proposed Resolution 1929 in the United Nations Security Council, and they passed against the Iranian people. So they sanctioned Iran. In 2013, Iran uh, accepted voluntarily to dial back its enrichment program. This was an act by Iran in order to convey its good faith in the negotiation and show goodwill, which
Mhm.
later on, this period resulted in 2015 JCPOA negotiation. Then in 20, I think 18, 19, Iran negotiated in sticks with the European countries, and obviously we had the negotiations during the presidency of President Raisi, which EU Foreign Minister Mr. Joseph Borrell said that Iranian demands are reasonable and the deal is within reach, but United States backed off from it. So
Right.
if you have listened to all of this and you followed my remarks, which I'm sure has been tiresome for some of your audience. So imagine what we feel as the people who were constantly trying to engage in diplomacy and dialogue with the United States, with the international community, in order to get our rights within the framework of NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, that every country has a right to a civilian, peaceful
Right.
enrichment program. Unfortunately, all these efforts have been unsuccessful because the other side only
Mm.
thinks about regime change, thinks about imposing more sanctions. 11 rounds of sanctions have been imposed on Iran during the talks themselves. As Iran was talking with United States, engaging in diplomacy, before the meeting, United States would impose one round of sanction. After the meeting, they would impose another round of sanction. So I think if Iran wants to do something, they have to
Mhm.
finally expel the IAEA's inspectors from the country, and the country should embrace the fact that there is no measure uh, trustworthy enough for the adversaries of Iran to
Mhm.
make them understand that the Iranian nuclear program is a civilian one, and ergo should go nuclear and develop nuclear weapon. That is the demand of demand of me as an Iranian and a person who is sick and tired of seeing all these nonsense being carried out, under the guise of being concerned about Iranian threats.
Hassan, I totally understand your sentiments and what started 2 years ago on October 7th with that attack from the Gaza fighters, Gaza terrorists on Israel. Now the gloves are off. No one is discussing about that, how it percolated to Iran, what was Iran's connection. But now it's time for Iran to take a political stand, as you mentioned, and go big or go home. is the message. Drive the IA inspectors out, enrich your uranium, and do what you have to do in order to be self-reliant. Our good wishes are there with you and your countrymen in this time of need, Ehsan. And One India thanks you once again for being a part of this very informed and very important discussion. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me to your show.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.